All right. Well, I want to welcome everyone to this panel discussion about digital inclusion and homelessness. So, over the next hour, we'll discuss how digital inclusion impacts homelessness, what is happening now, and what are some opportunities for the future. We'll hear some stories, and if there's time at the end, we'll take a few questions from the audience. And so we're going to go to our first panelist, who is Kara Bane, coming to us from Cape Breton. And so to kick things off, Kara, can you tell us a bit about where you work, your role there, and what you've been working on lately?
So, hello everybody. I work for Cape Breton Community Housing Association here in Sydney. We've been around since the 70s. We started with small group, option group homes, and we have expanded into homelessness programs, mainly the community homeless shelter, Housing First, and the newest addition was the street outreach program. And I work here as the intake case worker, so I'm the first point of contact for everybody coming into Housing First. And lately, me and the trustee have been working on to we've been doing financial literacy for some of our clients, and we're trying to include the digital platforms like the GEO laptops and everything to find a better way.
Wow. Thank you, Kara. That's awesome. Our next guest is Kathryn Tanner of PC Roots for Youth. Over to you, Kathryn. Can you tell us a little bit about, where you work and what you're doing and what you've been working on lately?
Yeah, so I'm the executive director of Pictou Roots for Youth, and we are very fortunate to have a youth emergency homeless shelter. So in that program, we serve youth ages 16 to 24. We also have a supportive living, a transitional housing program, ages 16 to 24, and a youth outreach program, which actually serves youth ages 12 to 26. So it's a pretty huge age range, and really looking forward to having more digital inclusion. It's been really helpful so far with our kids.
Wonderful, Kathryn. Thank you so much. And next is Mary Shaffer of Shelter Nova Scotia. Welcome, Mary. And please tell us a bit about where you work, your role there, and what you've been working on lately.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Mary Shaffer. I'm really grateful to be here today. I work for an organization in the HRM called Shelter Nova Scotia. So Shelter Nova Scotia has a handful of programs that run out of it that include supportive housing facilities, emergency shelters, halfway houses, drop-in center, community trustee program, and outreach services. So I am the house manager at one out of two of our supportive housing facilities, and it's called The Rebuilding. So the Rebuilding has 19 individual apartment units that house individuals coming from homelessness. We have 24/7 staff support, and the support that we provide is vast and based off the goals and needs of the individuals that we work with. Currently, we are working a lot on life skills and recreational type events going into the winter season. As it gets darker out and we're inside a little more, we like to do our best to try to create that sense of community and bringing people together.
Mary, goodness. And last but certainly not least, Alison Coldwell of the Canadian Mental Health Association, Nova Scotia Division, who's calling in, I think, from the beautiful Annapolis Valley today. It's wonderful to see you, Alison. Please tell us a bit about yourself as well, where you work, your role there, and what you've been working on lately.
Yeah, thanks so much, Laurel. I appreciate the invite. I'm happy to be here. So my name is Alison, as Laurel said. I work for the Canadian Mental Health Association, Nova Scotia Division, as the Coordinated Access Manager. So with funding from the Affordable Housing Association of Nova Scotia, in my role, I am implementing a system in collaboration with community entities and community partners, where folks who are experiencing homelessness can have their needs assessed and then be connected to housing supports and other supports. So I work closely, for instance, with housing support workers from multiple different agencies serving multiple demographics, multiple populations, through a whole support system of transitional housing everywhere on the continuum. So from shelters to transitional housing, supportive housing, and then into also supportive living situations. So after a year of policy building and partnership growing and hiring and training, so the next 3 months, I'm going to be rolling out access points alongside my colleague, Shauna Brousseau, and we'll be implementing those access points across the Annapolis Valley in each of the counties. We're hoping to do 1 to 2 per county. So right from Digby all the way out to Hants County. Yeah, so that's what we've been
Wow.
working lately.
You guys, there's such a breadth of work that you're all doing. And before we went live, we were kind of chatting about the work that we do. And I did indicate this used to be my work as well. And so the view we have that the homeless person is a single male in a tent in Halifax is not the face of homelessness. It certainly is not. It's much wider and broader than all of that. And I think the work that you're doing certainly indicates how widespread this really is. Thank you for all introducing yourselves. I really appreciate that. And I want to thank you all for participating today in our very first conference on digital inclusion, the GEO Forum 2024. And we hope you enjoy the upcoming discussions, and we hope the same for everyone watching us online. Before we get started with any questions or anything like that, there's some stories that I'm going to share throughout this session, and I'm going to share one right now. So some of the stories we gather are from the participants directly. I'll try to do it without tearing up, because sometimes I do, because these are real life situations and it's about real people. So this story is about a couple who lived in rural Nova Scotia, an elderly couple, and sadly they fell behind in their rent a bit, and where they were living was purchased by a new landlord, and the new landlord was willing to take some rental arrears and have them stay there, but that landlord required that they pay electronically. So we're talking about a couple that didn't have any transportation, no vehicle to get to anywhere, and they were getting a check in the mail. So through the referral partner, GEO was able to provide internet and a device, and through Digital Champions was able to train a staff member of that referral partner agency to help them so they could get online, so they could actually make sure that they got their funds directly deposited to their bank account, and they were able to pay the landlord as well. So they didn't become homeless. They were able to stay in their housing. And I think about how huge of an impact that is for couples and for community, and how much it would have cost us as a society if they had become homeless. So just that little bit in there helps, make sure that they're connected and making sure that they have the education as well to know how to use those devices. So that's just one of the stories that I want to share today. Okay, so we're going to go to our panelists for the very first big question of the session, and we're going to kick this off by asking Kara this question. From your perspective, how does digital inclusion or exclusion impact homelessness, Kara?
So in Cape Breton, I feel like we're behind everybody by 10 years a little bit. So I would like to touch upon the exclusion. Most of our clients in the shelter don't have cell phones or access to the internet, and like they usually come ask the shelter worker can use the shelter phone, which has like limited time on it, and they have to look up phone numbers, which isn't the most productive for them. And since the GEO Mobile Connect program has started and we've been getting phones for everybody, like one of our clients recently got an eviction notice like Friday evening, and they couldn't get a hold of the worker, but we got them the home internet and the laptop. So by the time Monday came, our client had already researched everything on housing loss prevention and prepared the J form and everything. Just having access to that, it fosters independence. It kind of makes the client feel empowered at the same time as well, like for them to get it done by themselves, which has been very great actually. And like the whole rapport behind with the client, which was kind of great. And the mobile phones have been very helpful for us to get in touch with our clients. I used to have a client who lived right next to Canada Post and who didn't have a phone. He used to go to Canada Post and call me from there. I was a bit confused a few times, like, why is Canada Post calling me? So that has been a lot helpful, like bridging the communication gap has made a lot of impact.
Thank you, Kara. I love the word empowered. That came up this morning in our panel discussion around mental health as well. So empowering people to be in charge of their own path. Thank you so much. Kathryn, from your perspective, how does digital inclusion or exclusion impact homelessness?
For us, especially with youth, social connection through social media or whatever platform is so important. So, if we know all of the things, we know to help with income assistance, we know, registering online, all those things that we can think of. But it's for us in that homeless sector, it's safety as well. It's, being out in the community when you're precariously housed. Maybe you're in not the best of a situation, and, to be able to call or say, hey, if I don't call in however long, call me. So that safety piece of being able to use that technology to get yourself out of a potentially very dangerous situation, it is really key. And for us, I was looking at the topics for all the forums in general, and for us, homelessness really it encompasses mental health, gender-based violence, all of the community services, all of those things. And it has been really, like you said, empowering to be able to provide the youth the phones or the tablets or the whatever, just from a safety perspective, understanding and knowing everything else, but that safety perspective for us, especially for our female or female identifying youth, is really, really key.
Oh, thank you, Kathryn. I was thinking about that as well. What a great point, the safety issue. We have some youth, I think they call it sofa surfing, where they don't have a particular place to be, but they're visiting family or friends wherever they can find a spot. Not everyone is wonderful when they offer that opportunity. So you're right, it is so important to have that digital connection for safety reasons. Mary, how about you? From your perspective, how does digital inclusion or exclusion impact homelessness?
I'm going to talk a little bit to the digital exclusion. Within the homeless population. It creates several barriers, as you could all imagine. Those who are sleeping rough, couch surfing, in shelter, etc. They struggle to even seek housing just from not being connected to the internet or having a digital skill set. A lot of landlords nowadays require folks to apply online, and they require email communication, like void checks and direct deposit forms. So not having digital inclusion makes it challenging and time consuming for unhoused folks to get connected to these resources. Oftentimes, if a person's lucky, they might be connected with a housing support worker who helps to make this process a little more smooth. But for the amount of people who are unhoused right now within the HRM, not all folks are able to get connected to those kinds of resources like housing support workers. Just at the rebuilding alone, we got connected with GEO Nova Scotia back in January of 2024. And since we house people coming from homelessness, these challenges and barriers that they're facing from digital exclusion is seen as they move into the building. So just trying to track down a new tenant when we do have a vacancy is a challenge. Often we're reaching out to outreach workers, trying to track this person down. As we're working with a population that's often having to move around from place to place. Even coming in, a lot of folks are interested in employment, but people require online applications now. We see a lot of folks trying to get connected to healthcare services or counseling, but they're not able to due to distance and transportation. So the rebuilding's pretty grateful to be connected with GEO Nova Scotia because it has allowed us to offer internet services and Chromebooks to all of our tenants. And we also had the opportunity to have a digital skills class for our tenants. For the less tech savvy individuals and for those who are more experienced, it was great to get that hands-on experience with assistance from GEO representatives. So from connecting with like family and friends across the country to just accessing healthcare services, it makes a huge difference.
Thank you, Mary. Yes, absolutely. Just having the housing support workers being able to find those individuals, the communication that's required for that, I'm sure it's very time consuming too for those workers trying to find them. Wonderful.
Exactly.
Gosh. Okay. And Alison, from your perspective, how does digital inclusion or exclusion impact homelessness?
So I can echo quite a lot of what was said already. We do find that clients experiencing homelessness, um, especially in terms of accessibility, accessing online forums and online banking and those kinds of things, it's really, really important that they are able to access that. Almost everything now is digital. And it facilitates the process so much, makes it so much more effective and quick. So one thing I'll say is that if you can imagine living in a place where you might not have access to showers or toilets or food all of the time, electronics, even the folks that we see in our office, they come in thinking that uh, a phone or a laptop is an extravagance, and it really is not. It really is kind of a lifeline. Like, we have to dispel that. We have to tease apart that stereotype and that mentality that it is, because to me, it's a sort of, if you think about, how if I was working in Halifax, for instance, and I needed to get there in an hour, I can do that because I have a car. If we remove my car, it's going to take me quite a long time to take public transportation or to find a ride. It makes the process so much more difficult. And so we're putting these handicaps on people that are not not fair. It's not equitable. It's not helpful. So giving them access to things like a phone or a laptop, it's about accessibility. It's about expediency. It's about keeping up with what the expectations are within our society. And another thing that I will say is that business cards, for instance, we hand out business cards all the time, and still our clients have a hard time connecting with us. So it's easier if they have a phone, they can put it in their phone and all of their contacts are in one place. Not to say that business cards aren't effective, but at the same time, if you have a device and all of your numbers are in there, it's less of a worry that you're going to lose a little piece of paper with somebody's phone number. So keeping in touch with clients is much, much easier in that way. They can reach out to us. I've had more and more people ask to be connected to GEO. So the word is getting out, and I'm very, very excited that people are starting to realize that it is a necessity. So, yeah.
Thank you, Alison. Yes, I would like to help dispel the myth that devices and internet is a luxury. In our modern world, it's not. It's the way that we communicate with each other and with our government and all our supports. So it seems very troubling that a certain sector of the population doesn't have access to that. So no, I agree with you wholeheartedly. It is not a luxury. It is a necessity in the world that we're living in right now. And I think about all the people who are very vulnerable. When you're almost homeless or homeless, you're in a very vulnerable situation, a very vulnerable predicament. And so having access to digital connects you to those resources, whether it's 911 even, or your housing support worker, or a way to find, a new landlord. Wonderful. Thank you very much for sharing, everyone. We're going to move on to the next question, which is, what are you seeing happening today related to digital inclusion and homelessness? Kathryn, can you start us off with this one?
So we actually just in the past few months have become referral partners. And so, we are seeing people reach out to us because they're kind of getting word out there. There are a couple of other organizations in our community that are also referral partners. But if I'm being completely honest, on a personal note, I had not heard about this program until our outreach worker was made aware of it from another organization. So I think here in Pictou County especially, it's still a relatively new concept of the availability. But having 3 teenagers of my own, and this struggle that I see could have been, to provide technology for schooling and for all that kind of stuff, it definitely translates. We're in a technological world, and we absolutely need to support people in being in that process. So yeah, it's relatively new in Pictou County, but it's been a game changer.
Thank you, Kathryn. We've only been around a couple of years, so that's probably why we're growing our referral partner network, which really is growing exponentially. But you're right. There are other areas we really need to kind of grow in, but we're looking to community to help us with that. Thank you so much. Mary, how about you? What are you seeing happening today related to digital inclusion and homelessness?
A big thing that I am seeing is, well, simply the awareness. But a lot of folks who are experiencing homelessness and housing insecurity are being connected with cell phones, whether that be through GEO Nova Scotia and other resources within the community. Working with unhoused and homeless individuals comes with challenges like simply getting connected, as we were saying earlier. These are folks who are moving around a lot and they're difficult to connect with, track down, just to simply check in and see how they're doing. I'm also seeing an increase in drop-in type services in centers. Even with Shelter Nova Scotia, we have a drop-in center called the H.O.P.E, where people could come in, whether that's get a shower, get a meal, but also connect to the internet and receive staff support with that as well. And just awareness, even within our library systems. The public libraries receive heavy usage from the unhoused and homeless population. And it's a safe place with easy access to computer services, as well as receiving support from those staff. So I feel like altogether, there's just a lot more awareness going on within the community of how important it is to be digitally inclusive, because it could be quite isolating for people when you're not connected, when you don't have a smartphone.
Oh, yes, absolutely, Mary. I would echo that as well. And I think from this morning, when Aaron from Scotland was talking about homelessness, well, not homelessness, but how vulnerable we all are. We don't know what tomorrow might bring. And so we might lose a job. We might have something happen to us, and we don't know what predicament we might be in. We can't predict tomorrow. So it's really looking at this holistically. It isn't just, an us and them, it's all of us. And so thank you for bringing that up. Wonderful. Kara, how about you? What would you like to add to the conversation around digital inclusion and homelessness and what we're seeing today?
So I've been the GEO referral partner for almost a year now, and in the beginning, we only had the Chromebooks and the home internet services, which helped our clients on their housing journey once they were housed. Some of our clients started working for call centers, like applying for jobs. Some are taking driving classes online, and it picked up a momentum. And every time a client got housed, a worker knew like you have to apply for the GEO Wi-Fi and get a Chromebook. And since the phones have been introduced, it's just been a fuel for the momentum and mostly for our housing insecure individual clients, like people living precariously and in the shelter. Now they have phones to access the GT Facebook Marketplace to look for housing on themselves and access resources. It's catching moment.
Thank you, Kara. Yes, I think also it was mentioned this morning about having more option, not just one internet connection and one device. It's what would work for the individual the best
Yeah.
way. So that was when we decided to roll out mobile. I think it's been a game changer for many on top of what we also provide. Alison, how about you? From your
Yeah, so the
perspective.
first thing, yeah. So the first thing I'll say is that access to technology, it is indiscriminate, the challenges that people are facing. So it affects youth, it affects older people, it affects single adults all the same. But one thing that I found, which was actually quite neat, it happened last week, that we had a client who was hard of hearing, and we actually used a cell phone to be able to communicate with the individual so that we would write down the text and they would be able to read it. So that was super helpful. But it's also about, as Mary said before, that it's about connection, like community connection, building relationships, reaching out to your sister or your brother if you not just need something, but if you have something to offer and you just want to be close with them. I'm finding that when people are coming into my office and we're doing a needs assessment, very frequently the community connection is one of the pieces that falls out very quickly after they become homeless. And that's because well, there's multiple reasons, but through digital inclusion, we can give them access to things like transportation apps. So Track My Bus is one of the more useful tools that I've found. It has a whole map. You can tell when the bus is coming. Community resources. So you can go on to the town of Kentville, for instance, and find a list of resources that you can find around town. They're accessible, they're easy to use. And then also educational tools are extraordinarily helpful. So if you've got a laptop and you have, you know, IXL math, for instance, they use that in high schools. So that's a really, really helpful tool that a lot of kids will need as well. And folks with communication barriers, I worked in place of safety for quite a long time, and I was looking after individuals like young folks who needed the apps that had the pictorial, so it's a PEX system, so it has the pictures that that they can use to communicate with their care providers. So those things are really, really useful. Yeah, so I find the more that people are taking advantage of these apps and those tools, the more we need to be on the ball with getting people connected. So yeah, I find it's kind of a bittersweet thing. We have a lot of movement in the right direction, and then we also have to make sure people get connected.
Thank you, Alison. I was thinking about the relationship that you all would have with the people that you work with and how important that is as well in this process. So it isn't just someone coming in saying, this is what you need to have. It's looking at what they require and can we provide that for them, looking from the ground up as compared from the top down. So I think that highlights that very, very well. Someone's mentioned texting can bridge a communication gap with people who are unable to take phone calls privately. And have language barriers as well. And I know from my previous work, many people love texting. They don't like to be on the phone, and texting is a much more gentler way to communicate with them. So it's lovely that we're able to do that as well for individuals. Thank you. Great discussion. Good discussion here. I'm going to share another short story here from our vast amount of stories we have at GEO. It's one of the things that we collect is stories from our participants because we want to know the impact and we learn from that impact. We learn about how to change and how to grow and how to provide community with what they need to have. So this story is kind of heavy. So there was an our executive director was contacted on a Friday afternoon. That's when all the phone calls happen. I know I worked in an office before, and that's when they come in. And so this wasn't even from a current referral partner, with someone who was trying to become a referral partner, but they were working with a family of 4 who were in a car in a parking lot in Halifax at a mall. And so our director said, how can we help? What digital needs do they have? And they had a laptop and they had a cell phone, but they did not have any data left and they had no connection anymore. So what my director did is ran over to our office and grabbed a MiFi unit. So a MiFi unit can give you internet wherever you are. Went over to the mall where this person was, gave it to them, and they went to the family and gave them the MiFi unit. They were homeless that night. I'm not going to lie about that, but they were able to connect the next few days and were able to secure housing. The one thing that we did find out after they had housing, we provided them with internet, was that one of the children at school had an iPad and a communication app. They didn't have it for home. So we were able to provide an iPad and that communication app free of charge to them so that child could not only communicate at school, but also at home. So I well up when I think about that story because it's not just that single person, it's a family and it impacts a family in such a way that they became homeless. And that connection to becoming housed again and that child in school and learning how to communicate. And I just think it's life altering in some ways for people to have that connection. So I'm so glad that people are willing to share their stories with us. I think it really rounds out the work that we do, that we understand it isn't just facts and figures, it's actually people behind it of various populations as well. So Thank you for listening to that story. Really appreciate it. This time we're going to start with you, Alison, if that's okay. What do you think are promising opportunities for Nova Scotia related to digital inclusion and homelessness?
Yeah, so I'll tell a little bit about a project that I did recently. It was a lived experience focus group. And so I had some folks come in who were experiencing homelessness. They gave their opinions about uh, how they were able to access different services around around the area where they were residing. And one of the things that came up was that they were all using Snapchat. So Snapchat was one of those things that, you know, you can find out where the hotspots are. You can find out where different resources are, where different people are, for instance. You can find out where your community is. So the folks who were connected with a cell phone or had Wi-Fi abilities, they were able to access that app. And I thought that was brilliant. I thought, what a great opportunity that we could have. You know, you don't have to be, if you aren't on Snapchat, we could use a similar tool for resource mapping. So that was something I think could be better investigated and a little bit more robust. But it's definitely one of those projects that I hope to promote and get a little bit of funding for. So that was what came of that focus group, which was not intended. We weren't exploring anything to that effect. So that was really great. GEO is a really great step in the right direction. I think having people have access to phones and devices through a service provider and being able to connect with them, you know, in some cases we have outreach workers who are going out and doing intakes, letting them know that that's there is a huge relief for a lot of folks who are experiencing homelessness. So I think they're very often surprised, is what I've learned, that there is that opportunity because it is seen as an extravagance and we're working really hard to dispel it. But yeah, so I did reach out to Project H.O.P.E, who is a GEO partner. And what they had said about this is that the mountain areas are particularly difficult for people to get access. And so there's an opportunity there for sure to expand, as Laurel had said earlier, expand the roster of service providers. So it'd be really nice to see that as well. And more referral partners or self-referrals would also be very helpful. But definitely we're seeing a lot of interest in getting connected this way. So we're very, very pleased and very happy to be partnered with GEO.
Thank you, Alison. I really like that Snapchat idea. I'm sure Carrie, who is in charge of our evaluation and learning, would be interested in that as well. A way to gather very quick information. Yeah, and having digital inclusion for all of Nova Scotia, for those in the mountain area, because I grew up in the mountain area, is also part of on our radar as well, and we are thinking about that. And yes, we are growing our referral partner network. I don't know if we're going to be at self-referrals for a while, but definitely want to follow and increase the number of referral partners to our outreach to make sure we're reaching those that we need to get to. Wonderful. Kathryn, how about you? Do you think there's anything promising, any promising opportunities around digital inclusion and homelessness?
100%, especially, you know, in the youth sector. I think it all definitely goes back to it's a need, not a want. And I find sometimes maybe with an older generation, they equate youth with, oh, they're just on their phones, blah, 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 blah. I've said it myself, but I'm also on my phone as much as my children are. But I'm saying, oh, you're on your phone too much. So it's really changing the narrative and changing people's minds that this is a need. This is where we are as a society. I don't see it changing. And so, you know, we need to move forward and like where we sit in Nova Scotia and Pictou County, definitely not an urban area like the HRM, but we're not rural, you know, say in the back of Canso. And so it is figuring how we get those referral partners. If you think of an organization like ours, there's us, there's Phoenix in Halifax, and there's Shift in Yarmouth. So that's a really long distance between shelters. And so, getting it out there, having more, say somebody in Antigonish between us and Sydney, and somebody, so that even to help the kids there get connected with us and our services and what we could do, because that's something that we find hard as an organization in general, is that rural piece of how do we help and connect the youth that are in rural, even rural to us. So that's what we're looking towards.
A great point, Kathryn. And I would also point out, I'm of the older generation. I helped a couple apply for the dental program through the federal government. They only did it online. That's all you could do is online applications. So I think hopefully some older people were realizing perhaps this is a necessity going forward. And yeah, there is, I had worked in rural Nova Scotia, and there's a combination of different things that happen and impact homelessness in rural as compared to urban centers. So definitely, thank you for bringing that up. Kara, what do you see? Do you see any possible opportunities for Nova Scotia related to digital inclusion and homelessness?
Yes, like everybody mentioned before, it's not a privilege, it's a necessity. And like as Alison said, self-referral, like that might be the most impactful, because we have clients who are on wait lists who are in need of services given the financial limitations right now, given everything being expensive and the budget restrictions, not everybody having enough funds just to have that access. It's a necessity to have the home internet and just a Chromebooks, which is being provided, which is everybody is very grateful for. And GEO is a good step in that direction, I feel. And we had some areas which were not serviceable for home internet, but over time, I'm seeing like more areas getting serviceable and serviceable. I feel like you folks are doing the work to reach as many people as possible, which is just great and admirable.
Yeah, we need to keep the momentum going on that, Kara, I believe, to get to the full rural communities for digital inclusion. Hopefully we can keep that conversation going forward and amplify it so that that disparaging gap is filled, so for all Nova Scotians to have that access. And because it isn't a luxury anymore, it's a necessity, very much so. Mary, how about you? What opportunities do you see, or promising opportunities regarding digital inclusion and homelessness?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to echo what everyone has been saying with the self-referral, and GEO Nova Scotia has been such a promising opportunity. Just as a referral partner myself, I talk about GEO all the time, and I'm always talking about the amazing impact that GEO's made on our building. It's been huge. I believe that community awareness, I know I touched on it earlier, but I'm just going to mention it again, is so important. For many of us who are housed securely, it's not something that comes to mind, being connected to the internet and how much we really rely on it, how much it impacts our lives. When I forget my phone at home for a day, I'm in a panic, So through GEO Nova Scotia especially, and others within the community, I believe that there's a lot of effort being made to get people more connected. Just at Shelter Nova Scotia alone, we do have donors who drop off old or unused cell phones so that we're able to redistribute this to our clients who are in need of it. And I think just moving forward together, it's important to be aware of the limitations that might come with that. And I know with digital inclusion and through GEO, digital skills class and coaching is offered on how to use a device, but it is ongoing for a long time. Does someone know how to use it? Do they know how to sustain it? Do we have people like on the ground showing them how to use these devices? Being connected is amazing, but it does require the ongoing support. And many people have grown up with these devices, but there is a population of people who have never owned a laptop or Chromebook or a smartphone before. And it's really an unknown world to them. And it could create like a isolation from our general society. So we live in a time where we rely heavily on being connected digitally. And I have witnessed several clients in our supportive housing facility who require ongoing support on how to navigate their devices. And we're lucky to have 24/7 staff available to support folks, but not everyone gets that kind of support.
Thank you, Mary. I was going to echo what you were saying as well as we have assumptions that, because someone grew up with technology, they know how to use it. And I learned a little while ago that actually some youth will go from a cell phone to a laptop and don't know how to access anything on the laptop because there weren't transferable skills for that. So you're right. It's having that knowledge, having that support for the individuals, not just giving them the device, but after, how are they going to use it? Can they use it to the fullest of benefit for themselves to connect and be connected? So really great points. I really appreciate you all so much. At this moment, I'm trying to get a name from regarding the draw, so I do apologize if I'm looking away from my screen a little bit. I'm trying to find a name here, so just give me 1 second. I do apologize for this. Okay, I have a name now. Fantastic. So it's now time for me to give something away. So for everyone who's watching today, streaming live right now, we've selected a name and you're about to receive your name here. So it is Miss Melissa Shore of Acoma Holdings. So congratulations, Melissa. You are the winner of a $250 gift certificate to one of our partners at Orchard, the largest refurbisher of pre-owned phones in Canada. So congratulations. We have your email address, Melissa. Don't worry, we'll be able to reach out to you in a couple of days with that. It's really exciting. I wish I could qualify for this, but I can't. But no, Orchard's fantastic, and they've been wonderful to help provide some mobile devices to us that we've been able to give out to various participants through our referral partners. So part of what I wanted to touch on today was around education and also around how we are routing things to the community is going through referral partners. Part of the thought behind that is that having that relationship of trust. Instead of us walking in and going, hey, we're the digital experts here, about working with our referral partners to let us know what is the need and helping them provide what that is and providing us feedback so that we know what we're offering is impactful to them. So I'm going to reach out to a couple of people that are new referral partners here. Regarding that, is that something that you're enjoying? Is it something that's helping to roll this out to people? Because I know this morning in the mental health part, we talked about some people thought it was a scam, actually. They didn't believe that they could get a free internet or a free device, and who was on the other end of the phone, what were they trying to get from them? And so this connection to that referral partner gives that trust. So it isn't just about us walking in. Kathryn, can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been amazing to be able to be a referral partner. We also like you get to know your kids, right? And you know kind of what they need. Do they just need data? Do they already have a phone? Do they need a Chromebook because they're in school? Do they, internet services at home? Are there other youth in that home, using the youth that we see on an outreach basis as an example, allows us to do a little bit of a deep dive and really kind of dig in to see what do they need. And so it's been really great. We're kind of in the process right now of having two champions, so our outreach worker and our housing support navigator. We haven't quite got him on board yet to be the kind of referral, but he would be our in-house guy. So yeah, it's been really wonderful to have this opportunity because it's been a barrier for us even to get a hold of we call them our kids. So even to get a hold of our kids and be like, hey, you all right? Like it's for us organizationally, it has been a game changer, let alone community-wise. So I'm very grateful for that.
Thank you, Kathryn. Mary, you're a referral partner. How do you feel about that? Has been a positive impact for you?
It has been amazing. It's made a huge difference, massive impact on our building and the folks that we work with. Even when someone does come move in the building and I start talking about connecting them with GEO Nova Scotia, they're like, is this real? Because it just sounds like too good to be true because it's just so good. And we were so lucky to have a digital skills class held by GEO on site in our building. So folks from all kinds of different levels of skill came down and got that hands-on experience and had the opportunity to learn more about GEO. And there was like, I believe there was 4 people who came in and sat down with our tenants. And then I was lucky to receive the digital champions training, which has allowed me even more resources in order to best support people. So it is massive, really big for our organization.
Wonderful. Kara, how about you? Anything you'd like to add to that conversation?
It's been incredible being the referral partner. Just like every time it's been introduced to a client, I've been asked, what's the catch? Or like, how long is it valid for? Like, it's a 1-year term, but they think after 1 year it's going to be gone, but no, it's not going to be gone. You'll be checked up on, and which has been incredible. And I feel it has made such a positive impact on some of our clients' lives, which has been very, like, makes me feel rewarded a little bit and a lot better. And I'm excited to keep on this journey.
Thank you, Kara. I know, Alison, you don't have direct contact with us as a referral partner, but through Project Hope, I think you probably touched on it a little bit. And you do coordinated access. So you coordinate things for people so they don't have to provide everything. What do you think about that model, about having referral partners be that first connection?
Yeah, so we have 2 referral partners through CMHA. One of them is the AWRC team, and then the other is Project Hope. And where we only have 1 office right now because it went during COVID, everything kind of got shuffled to in-home and in community, but we have 1 office space now. And so I'm finding now that we have this office space, people are coming in and saying, how do I connect to GEO? So it's definitely a popular, it's getting more popular, and I appreciate it. I'm actually looking at a sticky note here that says, can you please connect me to GEO? So, and that just showed up this morning. So I'm very pleased that we're able to connect people through our partners. Yeah,
Wonderful.
and as for the digital champion thing, I think maybe I might need to take that training.
Oh, I think it'd be well worth your time, Alison. I truly, truly do think it'd be worth your time to take that. Thank you so much for sharing that. And we try to learn from the referral partners as well. We try to gain as much information so that we can nuance and change and move forward with what you need to have as compared to what we think you need to have. So wonderful. I'm going to take a question from the audience here. Katie was asking, what is one thing you wish folks would understand about the intersections between tech, access, and homelessness? Very interesting question. Anyone want to try to tackle that? Alison.
Sure, I'll step in. Yeah, just really quickly, like I said earlier, when you don't have a place to live and you don't have access to showers and reliable food source and things like that, it seems extravagant to have a piece of tech. But it really is a connection to the community, and it really is about finding those resources. I think more than anything, people who are experiencing homelessness really need that access. It really is a genuine need. So that intersection is very profound, very definite. Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you.
Yes, really a great, thank Katie for coming up with it. And I think about as well, the population we work with are very vulnerable, very, very vulnerable. And so having this digital connection helps them so they can empower themselves to look for something. And when they don't have that, that's a very vulnerable place to be. I think about several years ago, there was sort of a thought, we could help teach other people who weren't homeless what it would feel like. So we would put them out for a day without their technology and no money, and they would have to feed themselves and find a shelter for that night. I think it would be a very big challenge for people to walk out of their house without their technology attached to them. I don't think anyone drives anymore without their cell phone with them. So having that, does it perpetuate homelessness if you don't have a connection? Is that as well? Mary, do you think that is a connection? If people don't have access to internet, could that help keep them in the spot of being homeless?
I think it definitely contributes. It definitely contributes to those barriers, like to accessing housing and whatnot. It makes me think of even just access to an emergency shelter. A lot of times it's first come, first serve. Some people will call to try to get a bed held. And some people, they don't have a phone, so they have to show up. And then oftentimes the bed we're often full, so folks get turned away. So they're waiting outside, checking in periodically to the shelter to see if a bed becomes available. And then this is during all kinds of weather, rain, snow. So it's a struggle and it's hard to see. And if that person had a cell phone, then maybe they would be able to access just simply that emergency shelter a little easier.
Mary, that's so profound. That is so profound. Thinking about that, trying to find shelter just for that night and not having access to a device to find out if you have a place to sleep that night and having to go there in person. How vulnerable that must be for that individual. Gosh, pretty heavy. Oh, goodness. Kara, is there anything you'd like to add to the conversation around the intersection between technical access and homelessness?
I feel it's about a connection to your support system. When you're homeless, you're really vulnerable. Like, you're facing a lot of situations a normal person wouldn't, a lot of emotions that are going through you. Just to have a phone to call a friend or a relative or just anybody to speak for a little bit, that connection is just more important than anything. And it's not a privilege, it's a necessity.
Wow, I think everyone's echoing that right now, is that this isn't just something frivolous. It is something we need to have just in our modern world to connect to the resources and the supports within our community and to each other. Homeless people just don't pop up or drop in. They come from our communities and they do have connections to people. And many times they've hit a really bad situation they aren't in control of at all. It's been around them. And how are they going to deal with that? How are they going to grow from that and empower themselves so that they can be housed, and not just housed, but stably housed. We think, throw someone in an apartment and it's all one and done, but it's not. It's a process. I'm sure Alison can echo that. You go to more stabilized housing and then hopefully long-term permanent housing. It isn't always a straightforward path. Sometimes it's a bit of a zigzag around, but having those connections and supports to what's available in community is so vital and so important. Gosh, I could talk about this all day. I really, truly could. Having worked in housing before and coming to GEO, I hoped that I would have a bigger impact around homelessness and housing by coming to GEO and the connections that way. So I see us growing and I see us helping so many more communities with this technology and with technologies themselves to get to those that really need the help and the support with that. So I want to thank everyone today for coming. We're getting close to the end of our session here. Is there anything that anyone would like to add? Oh, I think we lost Kara. Is there anything anyone would like to add before we close?
I would just kind of like to add one little thing that I've kind of noticed that has happened. We see youth on the worst day of their life when they realize that they are unhoused, that they don't have anywhere to sleep tonight. We deal with a lot of trauma as staff. We deal with, you name it, we deal with it. The wins are few and far between. We take them in little tiny places. The glimmer of light comes through little tiny cracks. Being able to provide technology, digital inclusion to people, to youth, to create that bit of light. Hey, listen, I got you a cell phone. I've got you some data. To be able to do that for a kid who's come here from Digby and can't get a hold of anybody, that creates the light for us as staff that sometimes it's hard to see day to day because, this stuff is heavy, it's hard, and I'm grateful to be able to do that.
Thank you, Kara. Thank Kathryn, thank you for that. Yeah, I think in rural areas, we definitely have, like you said, I think there are centers spread out, and having that connection is so important. It's so important. You dropped off there for a moment, Kara. I was just asking, we're about to finish up here. Is there anything you'd like to add before we leave?
No, it's been wonderful. I just want to be grateful and thankful for creating this platform and the space for just us to come together and talk about these things. Just conversations can start everything.
Wonderful. So I'm going to echo what Erin said this morning about making sure we keep this momentum going and we amplify this message so that our funders and we're very grateful to them. Continue this funding so we can reach those in the most need, most definitely, for sure. So I want to thank everyone today. It's been a wonderful conversation. Like I said, I could go on for hours on this conversation, but I'd like to thank our guests one more time, Mary, Kathryn, Cara, and Alison. Thank you so much for being here today. And thank you for the work that you do every day. Truly is heart-wrenching, done it myself, but it's also very highly rewarding. And I really appreciate that you were here today and provided your insight on this very important topic. And I also want to thank our viewing audience as well. We're so glad you were able to make time in your day to join us for this very important conversation. And we hope that you enjoy the rest of your day and can enjoy some other parts of the forum as well. And remind you that tonight there is going to be an awards ceremony in Halifax so that we can make sure that we amplify and honor those referral partners who've brought us this far, and want to make sure that we celebrate together. It isn't just us doing it, it's really our referral partners. And we're going to highlight some of the incredible people and organizations that are helping to make it happen. So I hope that you all have time to either, if you're not joining physically, if you can join virtually, to also echo and support those very important organizations. So I want to thank you all again very much for being with us today. And hopefully this isn't the end of the conversation, it's just the beginning of the conversation, and that we can have many more of these so that we can have this amplified and go further. So thank you so very much for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks
for
so
having me.
Thank you.